We have breaking news. Canadian hockey legend Guy Lafleur has died. CTV's Montreal Bureau Chief Jean-Vive Beauchemin is standing by live at the Bell Centre in Montreal with more reaction to this news. Jean-Vive, thanks for joining us this morning. We knew after the Montreal Canadiens put out that statement earlier this week about Guy Lafleur's health that, perhaps time was short, and now we've learned the sad news today that he died. What do we understand was the cause of death?
Well, it has not officially been released. We know that Guy Lafleur had been in ill health for several years now. There were issues with lung cancer that he was struggling with. There was a recurrence of that cancer in the fall, and he'd been ill since then. I think that the reaction here, of course, many Quebecers knew that he was ailing. This had been front page news for many months. There was news over the past few days as well that his condition had deteriorated, that he had stopped taking medication, is what one of the newspapers had suggested over the Christmas holidays, and that time was running out for him. But certainly still so many people, and that's why the Montreal Canadiens had put out that release, because they know just how much of he is so present in Quebecers' hearts, and they knew that people wanted to hear news from him. But of course, this will come not as a shock, but of course with deep grief right across this province, right across the country, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, the word legend gets thrown around a lot, but it is so applicable when it comes to Guy Lafleur. Jean-Vive, and of course, you're standing in front of his statue outside the Bell Centre this morning here. He played for the Canadiens. Most people remember him as a Canadian, but of course, he played for the Rangers and Nordiques as well. But what do you understand he means to people in Montreal and to Canadiens fans in terms of his place in that incredible, team's hockey legacy?
Yeah, it's that statue, and there's his statistics are on the side there, and there's a long list of those numbers and long list of his exploits on the ice. Certainly, he was carried in the hearts of so many here since he was quite young. He was 10 years old, and it was evident to many that he could be that one in a generation player. He really had that scoring touch so early. And when he started with the Montreal Canadiens, well, his exploits were right through his junior years. When he started with the Montreal Canadiens, there was some thought in his first years that maybe he wasn't living up to those expectations, because those first 3 years were a bit rocky, but then he just exploded with the scoring and the amazing skills that we saw for the next few years. He was all over the ice. We talked so much about that. He had that blonde flowing hair, not restrained by a helmet. He never wore a helmet while he was playing, and he just, sort of was all over the ice. People couldn't tell at some point what position he was playing, because he was just everywhere with that smooth skating, the scoring touch that he used on the ice. So certainly those are images that will never leave people's minds. But there's also his off-ice personality. There's so many stories about him never turning down an autograph. He was there. There would be people, in fact, to his families, a little bit of sometimes didn't really please all his family, all his children, but there would be people who would come up to him, and he had time for everyone. He would sign an autograph, never turned one down. He was a bit shy at some points off the ice. When you talked to him, he seemed a little bit timid at times, but he always took the time to speak to people. And when we often talk about the advice that he gave to young players, where he would say, he talked about his love of the game for young hockey players, and he would say, play every game as if it's your last. And those are words that he said he really wanted to say, because he wanted those young players to really enjoy the sport as he had. And so certainly those will be some of the memories that people will carry with them. There's so many stories. I can tell you that I think most people, most hockey fans at least in this city, have a story about meeting by chance somewhere Guy Lafleur and trying to talk to him, and just the legend that he was here.
Yeah, a gentleman, a legend indeed. Jean-Vive, of course, has not been a great season for the Canadiens, no doubt about that, and I'm a fan, so I feel that indeed. Are there any plans to sort of honor Lafleur? When's the next game, or would this be something that would be further down the road? Do you know yet?
You talked about the Montreal Canadiens season there. It's just an interesting thing, because over the years we did see Guy Lafleur would come out with some of the advice that he had for some of the players, some of the teams. He would comment on how the Canadiens were doing. He would come out from retirement at times to just make some comments about what should be done with some of the players, giving some advice from the sidelines there over the years. We don't know what the plans will be. There is already some talk of perhaps a national funeral of sorts that could be be national Quebec-wide funeral that could be held for him here, as it was for some of the past players. We looked at the Jean Beliveau funeral, which is such a huge moment here for the city. It's possible that it will be this, but of course this has to be discussed with the family.
Yeah, well, he certainly left a massive legacy on the ice, and as you alluded to there, Jean-Pierre off it as well. Jean-Pierre Beauchemin, live outside the Bell Centre in Montreal. Appreciate this as we continue to remember Guy Lafleur, dead at the age of 70. That breaking news continues here on CP24 Breakfast.